Da wo der Gletscher ist, geradeaus. Da ist links von dem Gletscher so ein weißes Ding. Das kann, laut Karte, das Chisapani sein.
Das ist aber der Gletscher. Da oben.
Ja, den meine ich.
So, ich dachte zwischen die zwei Berge.
Nee, da den.
Ja, dann ist es die.
Servus.
Hey there, Toby and me just arrived in Tadipati. After hiking the Tamang Heritage Trail, the Langtang Trek and the Gosainkund Trek, we crossed the Lauribina Pass yesterday and now we are at the north end of the Helambu Trek. And on the Helambu Trek, we want to walk all the way to Kathmandu during the next 2 or 3 days. Behind me, you can see the almost complete eastern Himalaya range in Nepal. You can see as far as to Gaurisang of the Rovaling range. The Helambu is a hilly region in between the Himalaya in the north and Kathmandu in the south. The classic Helambu Trek basically forms a horseshoe with Kathmandu at the southern end, Tadipati in the north and Timbu as the eastern end. We will hike the western trail from Ghopte and Tadipati with overnight stops in Kutumsang and Chisapani. If you climb the small hill north of Tadipati, you'll be rewarded with a great view of Langtang and Rovaling Himal towards the east side. From Tadipati, we continue on south, on top of a mostly flat ridgeline, to the tea houses of Gosainkund, where we spend our lunch break. On a small pass about half an hour south of Gosainkund, you will find the brand new lodges of Kuola Banyang. When we visited in fall 2018, they were just about getting finished. East of these lodges, you can find a path leading up to another viewpoint. You will need about 40 minutes to get up there. And finally, after 2 weeks of hiking, we ultimately spot the highest peak of the region.
Da wo der Gletscher ist, geradeaus. Da ist links von dem Gletscher so ein weißes Ding. Das kann, laut Karte, kann das Chisapani sein.
Das ist aber der Gletscher. Da oben.
Ja,
ist ein
den meine
weißer
ich.
Zacken.
Den meine
So,
ich.
ich dachte inzwischen die zwei Berge.
Nee, da den.
Ja, dann ist es die. Mission erfüllt.
On the way to Kutumsang, we meet several porters with tons of construction material and furniture, probably headed for the new tea houses in Kyola. After spending quite some time on that viewpoint, we reach Kutumsang at about sunset time. The guest houses there are very new and comfy. There also seems to be a bus connection to Kathmandu from here. Of course, we continue walking the next morning. The stage from Kutumsang to Chisapani is long, and despite that in total you neither gain nor lose much altitude, there are several ups and downs on the way. If that is a bit too much for you, you can easily break that walk in half by sleeping in Chipling. Amazingly, although we hike further and further away from the mountains, we still have impressive panoramic views of the Himalaya. We spent our last night on the trail in the village of Chisapani. Here you can once more see the devastation the earthquake brought to Nepal about 4 years ago. Several ruins of guest houses paint a rather creepy picture. The remaining or newly built lodges, however, are quite well equipped and comfortable. The very last stage down to Kathmandu Valley passes through Shivapuri National Park. The park is pretty small and for Nepali standards not very spectacular. Anyway, the entry fee is about $10, which actually seems quite a lot to us given the general price level of the country. After a short climb, it's downhill all the way. We can already see the city on the horizon, and there is a background noise that seems to get a tiny bit louder with every single step we take. Our trek ends in Sundarichal. This recreation area is also responsible for Kathmandu's main freshwater supply. "18 days after we started our hike in Shivapuri, we find ourselves on this bus park on the outskirts of Kathmandu. We treat ourselves with a $20 taxi ride back to Tamil in the city center. About 1 hour later, we're back in civilization. We needed 3 days to cross western Helambu. If you want to add the eastern trail to Timbu to your trek, plan 4 to 5 days. From there, you will need a good half day to Kathmandu by jeep or bus. You'll need tickets to Langtang and Shivapuri National Park, which you can buy at the park gates. In total, these will set you back about $40. We didn't need a TIMS permit in fall of 2018. Also, you don't necessarily need a guide here. However, there are many trails and roads crisscrossing this region, so navigation is not as easy as on the high altitude treks. You need a good map, and you might have to ask the locals for directions a few times. The maximum altitude on this trek is approximately 3,700 meters at the northern part in Tadipati. But depending on your schedule, you can avoid overnight stops above 3,000 meters. Thanks to the numerous villages on this trek, you can be very flexible in your itinerary, which makes the trek fairly easy despite some ups and downs. Almost all villages here have connections to dirt roads, so you're never more than a few hours away from some form of transportation. That also means you won't be alone for much of the way. You'll mostly meet locals though. We hardly met any other hikers until we reached the Shivapuri National Park. Helambu's lodges were surprisingly new and comfortable, probably due to comparably easy transportation of goods in the region. About $25 per person per day should be enough for food and lodging on this trek. In general, we found trekking through the diverse villages in the hilly landscape of Helambu extremely interesting. The typical romantic Himalayan idea of yaks and kompas seems to be worlds away. It's just a very different Nepal, which most trekkers probably never really experience. Despite you basically only hike near the Himalaya, and also only on the northern part of the trek, there are great views of the mountains at several places on the trail. You can see from Manaslu Himal in the west to Rovaling Himal in the east from various different spots. Additionally, you might get a glimpse of an 8000er if you know which tiny distant peak to stare at.
Servus!
Hey there! As you can see, the beard is gone, lots of buildings behind me. We did it! We made it to Kathmandu! For almost 3 weeks, we hiked all the way from the Tamang region near the Chinese border, up the Langtang Valley to Gosainkund and across the Larabina Pass through Helambu. We enjoyed every single step of the way, and I hope you also had some fun watching this. And in case you actually did, maybe you want to consider subscribing to our channel. That way you always get the newest videos from Nepal, and you'd also do us a huge favor in doing so. That's it for this time, and I hope we'll see us on our next trek.